The following podcast reflects the views and opinions of the hosts and guests only. They do not reflect the views or opinions of any agency or specific members of an association. At times, colorful language may be used and may be unsuitable for people under the age of 18. Discretion is advised.
111, 110.
Hello, everybody. Steve Grammas, president of the Las Vegas Police Protective Association. Thank you for joining us for episode number 17. Crazy that we've done 17 episodes since we started. We were just talking off camera about where we started, and our very first podcast was with then City Councilwoman Michelle Fiore. And then our second one had one of our e-board members eating a super hot Dorito chip or whatever it was. And now here we are. We got our own set. You'll notice we don't have the couch today like we had with Director Brian Peterson. We have two chairs, just John and myself holding this episode down. John, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again.
We haven't told you, but we are going to have you eat another chip. We do have
for
it.
heaven's sakes.
No, we're listen, we just did a show, but there's some topics we want to really talk on here. John's going to kind of talk through what he did at the legislative session. He is our governmental affairs person. He does a phenomenal job. He lives up in Carson City with the politicians, wears really high boots, so when the crap gets super deep, he doesn't get it on his socks or legs or anything like that. But he does a great job for our members, and not just our members. It affects police officers and first responders across the state with some of the legislation that he works on. So we're gonna have John talk about that today and have a good time, and then we'll talk a little bit about Jason Aldean's hit song. It is a hit song, no matter how much certain parts of the media want to not play it or not talk about it. It is a friggin' hit. It is a good song, and so we'll kind of close with that and our support for Jason. So again, John, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
We will not have a hot chip for you today. The only hot chip is the hot chip of what goes on at the legislative session that you came back from in June, right?
Yes.
So talk to the folks about how the legislative session goes, what your role is for us, how you kind of got into that, what you've enjoyed about it, some of the things you've learned about it, and go from there, buddy. The show is yours.
So first off, I gotta say thank you to Steve for having the faith and trust in me to do this job. It's a lot when you send away one of your reps to go up there and live, and I might talk to him every other day or weekly depending on the bills and stuff like that. So a little scary at first because you don't know what to expect on a daily basis.
Della, now I need boots, because it too apparently gets pretty deep in here, and so I don't want to mess up my blue socks, and so I need something a little higher.
But when I drove up there, obviously took the car up there the first weekend, and you just get yourself situated. I had a condo a couple of blocks away from the legislative building, and then it snowed. Oh my gosh, the snow up there this year was absolutely insane.
They said it was a record, right?
Yes, it was.
I had
crazy.
lunch with Governor last week,
Yep.
And we were talking about that, and I said, how was it? And he said it was record snowfall.
Yeah,
record snowfall.
The snow was crazy, and walking through it's cool. I never lived in a very snowy area, but I'd done a little work up there last session during the COVID session. I was up there for a week in the building, but nothing that doesn't even prepare you for being in the building daily. So you get up there and Monday morning you kind of walk in, and there's a lot of pomp and circumstance that first week. Just everybody getting introduced and new legislators. So a lot of work doesn't go on that first week. But then the slog of it comes, and I'm talking to David here, talking to you about our priorities there. Obviously, drop program was a priority. Right before session started, the state Supreme Court surmised that law enforcement officers did not have qualified immunity in the state and never had it. So I spent the first few weeks. I mean, literally, it's walking the halls. Before session started and during the endorsement process, you meet a lot of the politicians who then get elected. So they know your face and they know your name, but a lot of that is just walking the halls and talking and saying, "Hey, this is what my priorities are. This is what we're trying to do." We already had a bill sponsor for the drop program, so that wasn't a problem yet. I'll say yet. And then Qualified immunity, no Democrats wanted to touch that whatsoever. And when you walk in and the first thing you say is qualified immunity, they're like, basically, get out of my office. They don't say it like that, but you can tell when the conversation is they're trying to get you out of there as fast as possible. The meetings are 15-minute increments, and it's you don't get a lot of face time. Now, the ones we endorse, I'll tell you, I had a lot of access to Assemblyman Brian Hibbets, former LVPPA sergeant.
Yep.
And he always had time. If he was in his office, I could just walk in and talk to him. But a lot of like Democrat stuff like that, just they're important during those 4 months. So they kiss your butt for the endorsement, and then when you get up there, they're the most important people in the state according to them, and their time is very limited, and they're being drugged in different directions. So a lot of it is they have couches on every floor. So I would find myself sitting on the couches during committee hearings, and when those committees let out, is when you catch them walking to their office or catch them walking to wherever they're going to go, and talk to them about priorities, about our priorities. A lot of that too is just tracking bills and bills that are not good for us. Obviously, we had a bill with Senate Bill 225, sponsored by Dallas Harris, and it was trying to revoke our post certificate. So you couldn't come here from another state and try to be a police officer if you had like your post certificate revoked from that state. So they were trying to codify that. There was a piece in there talking about mental health where they wanted yearly a police officer to go see a mental health professional. And then based on what you said to them, the mental health professional then could on their own say, hey, I've got to revoke your post certificate. So then what do you do? So obviously, as soon as I read that, I go down to Senator Harris's office and sit down and talk to her. Like, this piece of this bill is not good for us. Like, where do we got to be? Like, I'm gonna go hard against the bill. I'm gonna testify against the bill as to why it's not good for law enforcement. And believe it or not, as many bills that she sponsored that affect law enforcement, she actually took that part out of the bill. I couldn't kill the whole bill. It ended up passing. A lot of the things in that bill, Metro already does anyways. It's just codifying it for the rest of the state. So in my opinion, I think that's probably one of my bigger wins was to get that part out, because my opinion on it is, okay, so you're an officer and you were in an officer-involved shooting a few months ago, and you have to go for your yearly mental health evaluation, and the doctor asks you, okay, you were in an officer-involved shooting, how are you doing? And the officer would be like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm back to work. Nothing's really affecting me. And in my opinion, what if they don't like that answer? What if they think that you should be doing worse, or you think that it should have affected your mental health more? Can that be a reason for them to revoke your post? And then what do? You can't be a cop. So that part coming out of that bill was very, very important.
Yeah. So, it's funny because you look at it from the angle of like if an officer came from another jurisdiction,
Mm-hmm.
and there are a lot of places that don't have due process, collective bargaining agreements. They're just kind of at-will police officers. And so they could get rid of somebody, revoke their post status, and they have no process to fight to get it back. And so they go, hey, I was a good cop, caught in a crap situation. I'd like to hire on here. And so then we would have – so under her bill, we would have had his post-certification revocation would have kept him from being a cop here?
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely. That stands today. And that part of the bill I don't like, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the future. If it affects recruiting, how it affects our cops here if they do get into trouble, because it requires a department to report to post. If it meets that certain criteria in the bill. So that's why it's incumbent upon us to really fight for our cops and make sure they are getting the proper due process, because as well as I do that some of these cops here just kind of get railroaded into stuff, and that's why they have a union.
So prior to Governor Lombardo getting elected,
Mm-hmm.
How pompous, so to speak, were most of the Democrats? Did they all believe Steve was getting elected? No doubt about it.
They were very surprised. They thought they had it in the bag and he was going to be the next governor, and the incumbent governor. So they were very surprised when Governor Lombardo became the governor, and it definitely showed during the session. Every day towards the middle and the end of the session, after, because we had snow days involved, we weren't in the building for 2 or 3 days straight. And, all of these lobbyists that had been around, I'm friends with lobbyists that been in that building 35 years. And they're like, I've never seen it this slow. Like towards the end of the session, probably mid-May, everything was in Ways and Means, which is the money committee, which is where they say bills go to die. Where fiscal notes are dropped, which I know we're fully aware of fiscal notes for our drop bill. And committee meetings weren't they didn't have any. And like you had legislators who had nothing to do and they were going skiing still. I mean, it was crazy. They were taking days off, and because they were slow rolling bills until, and by that time in the session, they probably should have had well over 100 bills across the governor's desk, and they had, I think, less than like 20 or 30. Yeah. Which is unheard of. And what they were doing is they were slow rolling towards the very end, because they wanted to see what he was going to do with some of their key bills. And then when he vetoed one of the budget bills, then all of a sudden the bills that are important to him, which happened, one of the bills that was important to us, it's called getting put on the chief clerk's desk. So they take it. So when a bill is heard and passed, it has to be read in both houses twice. And so when they put it on the chief clerk's desk, it takes it out of reading, and it just stays there stale until they decide what they're going to do with it. So we had a bill. It wasn't our bill, but we were heavily involved in it, which added like the city marshals and the school police to heart and lung. That bill was fully going to pass. It had bipartisan support. It was due to be read. And then when the governor vetoed that certain budget bill, it went to the chief clerk's desk, and it was due to be read on signed die. And literally at midnight, in the middle of reading a bill, because the chief clerk reads all the bills, she backs away from the microphone mid bill reading and stops, because per the Constitution it has to stop at midnight on signed die. So that bill should have absolutely passed. We worked hard on it. It had bipartisan support, and then just because of politics, it didn't get passed.
So talk about, without burning any people, of course, how much real work are the folks up there? You just said some are out skiing.
Yeah.
Some are out screwing around. Like, these are people that are being voted into office
Yes.
to pass laws, make our state better. And when the citizens are expecting them to be up there doing a job, you say that folks are out skiing. And
some of them, like they, it depends on what, if you're like, so for instance, Assemblywoman Danielle Monroe Moreno, Democrat, she is the chair of Ways and Means. She's busy. Like, she has no days off. She's there on the weekends.
As she should be.
Yeah, she's there on the weekends. That's towards the end of the session that they're hearing 30, 40 bills a day. Government Affairs in the very beginning, they work a lot, but they have to have bills to give hearings to. And once the bills are all heard, and they've been given what's called I forgot what it's called. So once they're heard and they got to go through one more process to go to the Senate or the Assembly floor. Once all of those bills are heard, there's nothing else to do, right? So if they have a caucus meeting in the morning, after that, like, you don't know they're leaving. You just go to their office, like, oh, so and so isn't in for the day. But then you kind of hear, oh, they were out skiing or on this day or whatever else. And I'm not going to burn anybody,
Sure.
Some of them are our friends too, But yeah, it's it just depends on what committee you're in and what bills being heard. Obviously, any of the school bills, the budget bills were all they were there a lot.
So what was the feeling? Did it feel like it was going to be a stalemate between Republican Governor Joe Lombardo and the Democrat-controlled House and the Assembly, or Senate and Assembly?
Yes, I really felt it really was especially towards the end. You start hearing rumblings. I mean, that don't get it twisted. Like, lobbyists make that building work. It's even the legislators will tell you that. And that's one thing that this is my first full session, so it'll be interesting to see next session. But some of these lobbyists, like Danny Thompson, who used to be an assemblyman years and years ago, some of the best moments that I had were when he's got a young group of lobbyists sitting around second or third floor, and he's just telling us stories about how it used to be, back in the 80s and 90s and things that they used to do, and how, like, this is very different for them because it's very different to have a Democratic-controlled Senate and Assembly and a Republican governor. So, and and that's what led to the special sessions. They wanted to get the A's baseball stadium passed. They were trying to get that film tax credit passed. In fact, they had who's the actor? It was
Mark Wahlberg.
Mark Wahlberg was there. Had a big press conference in front of the building that day. He's walking around getting pictures with all the legislators. And I've heard that they're going to possibly do a special session sometime later this year, early next year, for the film tax credit bill, because they want to bring film studios here and make films in Clark County.
Yeah, Sony wanted to come here, and then Mark has a company that he wanted to start up here too, I think, right?
And they're still pressing for it. And that and the A's bill towards the latter part of the session dictated some of the bills getting passed or not. It was just a crazy experience.
Was the Oakland A's bill always something they were talking about the entire session?
No,
it just popped up.
It just popped up towards the end. They came in and hired one of the big lobbying groups. All of a sudden, you started, and I'm friends with, Southern Nevada Building Trades rep Vince Saavedra, and he's the one representing the people that are going to help build this stadium. So of course they support it because it feeds the families that he supports, just like we support cops and things that feed our families. So he was a big proponent of the stadium, and he was there special session trying to get it passed. And so it towards the very end, it became a very big deal.
Nice. Anything else from the session that maybe our folks don't know about or understand, or something you want to clarify for our cops? And
for us, just how I think that people don't really realize the job that I do when I go up there. I thought about it a lot, and I'm the only active police union rep that's there full time. You've got people from Washoe County, and Metro has their team, and I work with them a lot, very very close to those two. But I'm the only full time police union lobbyist who's an active police officer. So you end up finding that even though some of the bill, I tried this session to stay out of the police related bills, just to let Metro handle that. But I would behind the scenes. So like SB 225, it's not really a union bill, but behind the scenes we have a lot to say, and our opinion is asked about a lot of these bills that get heard and passed. So. It was a great process. I was very nervous at first about it, because you're leaving your kids and your family, but with the invention of obviously FaceTime on my kids every single day, and it just becomes part of the process. And I actually really enjoyed it. Even the travel isn't all that bad. It's an hour plane flight. All the friendships that you make that building go round. A lot of the meetings that I had weren't in the building, and I don't know if it's okay to say, we would go across the street to the bar after work, and that's where you'd have a lot of great meetings with legislators that you can't have in the building, and they, have a couple drinks and they, let loose a little bit, and they'll talk to you. So it was a great process. I look forward to doing it again next session.
What concerns do we have for next session?
Oh, the biggest concern for me is. Democrats are pushing for that super majority in the Assembly and the Senate, and if they do that, they can override any one of the governor's vetoes. Which is, you'll see the car stop bill come back that didn't pass. That bill is terrible for us. It's
what was that for people that don't know?
So the car stop bill is some of the legislators believe that police will basically use car stops to pick on a certain race of people. So they'll see your plates have been expired, 5 days, and because that person is a person of color, that you're going to stop them just for that reason. So to profile them, and they say, hey, car stops is what get people of color killed the most. Is they bring the people with all the stats. But you and I both know. When you're stopping a car, most times the windows are tinted and you can't see the person driving. So you're literally just stopping them for the infraction. And so they were limiting the types of car stops that police could do. We worked hard on that bill, because in the very beginning, when they write these bills, they write them, as bad for police as they possibly can, knowing that they're going to get whittled down by lobbyists and police groups. So that bill was ultimately vetoed by the governor, which is good, and they can't.
So it made it to his desk.
It did make it to his desk, absolutely. But it's it's a little bit of gamesmanship, because I worked on that bill. I worked on that bill, knowing full well that I'm working on it, trying to get that relationship with the senator and all the people that are involved in that bill, knowing the governor's probably gonna hate it. He was a cop for 30-something years, so he's gonna see that bill and be like, that's how police work is. That's how police work's done. That's how criminals are taken off the street. There's case after case of violent criminals, and it's all over the country where even Timothy McVeigh and things like that were stopped on a car stop. So if we don't have that ability to stop these type of people, we're letting violent criminals get away, or rapists, or kidnappers, or even terrorists. So that bill will come back, and the governor will try to veto it again, and he probably will. But then if they have super majority, they'll override the veto, and it'll pass. So this session, I wasn't necessarily worried about anti-police stuff, because I knew, and they all know it too. He's not going to let a lot of this stuff get past his desk. But if they have a veto override, what do you do?
So what are the numbers they need for that? Where do they sit currently?
They need one seat in the Senate to have a seat, because they already have supermajority in the House. So they need one seat in the Senate. They're targeting. We just found out that Senator Heidi Gansert is not going to rerun for her seat. And they redistrict her, so that gave her, I think I read it was like D plus 5 or D plus 4 or something in her district now. So and that means that she has a Democratic majority in her district. So she's already behind the power curve when she's running, when that's been a Republican district in her district for a long time.
What part of town is that? Where's that at?
I think it's in Reno.
Okay.
It's in Reno. They're going to target Senator Carrie Buck's seat.
Mm-hmm.
They've already, and she's great to work with too. Very, very personable. But they've already tried to paint her as being not a good senator, and not she said that she didn't get a lot. They said that she didn't get a lot done. A lot of that isn't her fault. When you're in the minority there. I was told when we, going back a little bit, for our qualified immunity bills, with people that carried our bills, as soon as I said that, they were like, I'm not even going to read it. Like that. That's how crazy the partisan politics is there. So they need one seat to get supermajority. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm already meeting with candidates who are running for assembly. So we'll see. It's going to be an interesting endorsement process, an interesting election cycle.
What number do we need to take the supermajority away in the assembly?
I think we need something like, I don't have the number off the top of my head. We need a lot. It's tough to win. We probably need five seats.
Gotcha.
Somewhere around five seats. So that'll be tough. But as I'm talking, I was talking to a well-known Democrat. I don't want to say her name here. And
you just narrowed it by 50% by saying her name.
Yeah. So, talking to her, she was like, we don't want the super majority, because then you had no excuses for your constituents to pass the legislation that they want. But there's still a lot of independents in this state, and independents, for voting outnumber Democrats and Republicans. These are the people that don't always vote Democrat, don't always vote Republican. They vote the issue. So if you have supermajority and you have a veto-proof vote and a veto-proof bill, and it's something that drastically affects independent voters, then guess what? You're not going to have it again next session. And then obviously they want a Democrat back in the governor's seat. And if you pass legislation that's so bad, it's like doing things in an echo chamber. You think it's really good legislation, but then when it gets out there and people have to deal with it and actually eat it, you see how really bad it is. You saw a lot of that stuff this session. There were bills that they have to continually come back and revamp and add to, because they don't understand how it affects the constituents until the bill is passed, and then they got to deal with it.
How active do you see the PPA in the elections next year?
I see it's very active. Honestly, I'm working on some things. I just to get people out to vote. Making sure they vote for our endorsed candidates. I'm already, based on my experience in legislative session, I'm revamping our questionnaires, and the fluffball questions are gone. It's hey, will you carry a bill for us? It's, stuff like that. Why didn't you meet with us? I've got, and I know Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno was very busy, but we endorsed her. And while I can't just be like, you endorsed me, you got to meet with me. Like, we endorsed you in the very beginning. I expect to have more than a 10-minute meeting with you. When you see me in the hallway, have a nice conversation with me, even though you're busy.
Is she a former North Las Vegas corrections officer?
That she is.
So former law enforcement.
Yes,
and she still couldn't give you the time of day.
I mean, she met with us, but for our drop program bill, that all I wanted was a hearing for that bill.
Yeah.
We met with all the legislators. They love the policy of it. They understand. We got to see that fiscal note. Got to see the fiscal note. So when the fiscal note drops, we know it's a BS fiscal note. I wanted the opportunity for a hearing to explain why that fiscal note is bad and explain why drop would be a great program to keep law enforcement officers. Because what we're seeing now is a lot of these agencies are declaring critical shortage where retirees can come back. So they're going to be getting their PERS. They can come back and work part-time as a police officer, but PERS isn't getting any of those contributions. In fact, they're just paying out.
Yeah.
Drop would give them the contribution. So I just wanted the opportunity that I didn't get in her committee room. So we're gonna have a conversation about that.
Nice.
So,
anything else, buddy?
no, that's it.
No?
Just looking forward. We're 16 months away from the next session.
Sure.
I'm already counting the months and the days. So I'm going to an event Friday night. It's a sportsman's dinner for the Southern Nevada Building Trades. There'll be a lot of active politicians there. So I'll have a lot of great conversations. I had one before. Melissa Clary just called me. She's running against Olivia Diaz for city council. So
Okay.
she's really vying for our support. So I'll see her there Friday night. So
Now, are you the president of some duck group or
so
something like you got wrangled into?
yes, I got wrangled into. So yes, our treasurer Dan Coyne and I are the chair and co-chair of the Ducks Unlimited chapter for Las Vegas. It's a great conservation group. We're selling tables, a lot of great opportunities to win hunting rifles, and we've already secured a mountain lion hunt in Endow through the help of Commissioner Marilyn Kirkpatrick. She's helping us as well using her connections, and she's getting us some good stuff from the Nevada Department of Wildlife. So we got some good hunts to raffle off and a great chance to win guns and to have good food. So it'll be a great time.
All right. Yeah, I never knew you were much of a hunter or duck shooter.
I just want to get out there and help the community.
Yeah. Shout out to Nick Gully, who should be the head of the conservationists, whatever. He's a mallard catcher. He traps them.
He just trapped
like a cat trapper, and he spays and neuters them, but he just puts tags on ducks and sends them on their way. Yeah. All right. I appreciate it, John. Listen, from all of us, it is a tough job. You leave your family, you leave us, your second family, and you go live in a foreign town, and you deal with the snow and all that crap, and you probably don't get the credit you deserve for the work you did up there, but you did a great job. We're very proud of the work you did. So, for me, thank you, buddy.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for your continued work. Do we want to just roll into the? Yeah. All right. Let's just roll into the final segment of this thing. So. Usually you'll see a gap of time between our podcasts. The 13.2 million followers that we have continue to always want us pushing out more and more content. And it just depends on what we have going. But something going on in the media right now that I kind of took some personal offense to with what happened is the new song by Jason Aldean.
Great song.
It really is a good song. The song itself, it is supportive of good citizens. It is supportive of people not acting like criminals and burning buildings down and shooting cops and things like that. Of course, Jason Aldean was performing on 1 October when we had the biggest mass casualty in the United States from a lone gunman. And he was on stage and he lived through that. And, post that, he's always been supportive of law enforcement. And, we saw a lot of people afraid to step out in front in the spotlight and talk about their support of police for quite a while. And as we deal with and you deal with like some bills, these bills aren't new to our state. This is a national narrative that is the same crap that gets filtered from D.C., all the way down to the state level about how cops need to be further wrangled in, how cops are the bad guys. And so you got this guy that puts a song out there it's try that in a small town, right? And it's basically says, yeah, you come to a small town and you try and riot and you try and cause problems, we're going to stop you. And it was intimated that the folks would band together as a counter barrier to those folks trying to cause harm and not be violent with them, but not allow them to do the criminal activities they were doing. And so when I was talking to Adela about this next show and this show in particular, I said, you know what, with everything that guy has been through, with everything going on in the country, as we're trying to come out of all that rhetoric about how the cops are bad, and you have someone talking about what happened to us during those protests. Of course, one of our own, Shay, was shot during one of the nights there. We've had many officers hit with bottles, bricks, rocks, rounds were fired. I mean, it was a horrible, tumultuous time. And so Jason Aldean puts a song out that says, hey, basically, you're not going to do this. This isn't something you should be doing. And TV shows like, I don't even know if you're allowed to say the name of the show, but, you get the view of what I'm saying, where these people just want to bash and say he's a racist and all kinds of stuff for his song that is anti-cause problems in any town, but more namely a small town, right? And so I said, well, Adela, of course, I've never been one to shy away from some controversy, as we've seen many times in my tenure here as the president of the PPA. And so why not better potentially show support and tell those people that are anti-Jason Aldean's new song that we at the Las Vegas Police Protective Association, on behalf of the men and women at the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, one of the highest praised police departments in the country, we're going to play part of your song. I don't even know. Well, we might play the whole thing. I don't know what the copyright limits are. And listen, we're not selling it. We don't, we get offers all the time. I mean, Spotify has hit me up at least 7 times to take Joe Rogan's show over. $150 million was the last offer. I said, I'm not doing it. I am a not-for-profit podcaster. So with that in mind, we're going to close the show with our normal, be safe, anything you need from the PPA. We are here for you. We have some events for our members coming up. It's been a great summer. It's been a great 2023 so far. John's done great work up at the session. But we're going to close this show out with Jason Aldean's song. If you don't like it, don't watch the podcast. If you like it, continue to watch the podcast. And if you really like it, watch the podcast, tag the LVPPA, and take a photo of a thin blue line flag or the American flag or whatever you want to do. Show support for Jason Aldean and his hit song. And till the next time, we appreciate you. We love you all. Be safe, and we'll see you on episode 18. And that is Peyton Manning's number, I think, was 18. So this show was Phillip Rivers, 17. Then it'll be Peyton Manning, episode 18. Be safe. Thank you guys for listening and enjoy the show.
Sucker punch somebody on a sidewalk. Carjacking old lady at a red light. Pull a gun on the owner of a liquor store. You think it's cool, act a fool if you like. Cuss out a cop, spit in his face. Stomp on the flag and light it up. Yeah, you think you're tough. Well, try that in a small town. See how far you make it down the road. Around here we take care of our own. You cross that line, it won't take long for you to find out. I recommend you don't. Try that in a small town. Got a gun that my granddad gave me. They say one day they're gonna round up. Well, that shit might fly in the city. Good luck. Try that in a small town. See how far you make it down the road. Around here we take care of our own. You cross that line, it won't take long for you to find out. I recommend you don't. Try that in a say